Edelgard is a character that absolutely no one in the Switch era of Fire Emblem should be unfamiliar with. Indeed, Three Houses has gotten very popular, but while many people know who Edelgard is, there are some mysteries behind her and her family which Three Houses has left up in the air for better or worse. Today we analyze 3 theories about Edelgard, ranging from her family, her expiry date, and her final form. As a disclaimer, these are in fact theories and should be treated as such. They aren't 100% confirmed by the game or the developers, and this is just a fun 12 or so minutes of speculation, and this video should not be used as an absolute statement on the intentions of the writers. Without further ado, let's start with number 1. Lady Patricia / Anselma. Edelgard's mother and Dimitri's stepmother is a very pivotal character in Three Houses' backstory, and while her importance is slowly uncovered during the Blue Lion's route, there are still many questions surrounding her that never get answered, and this is one of those mysteries which arguably gets even more bizarre the more you learn about it. Let's start with this. Why was she exiled from the Empire? The timeline establishes Anselma, known as Patricia in the kingdom, was kicked out of Adrestia very early after bearing Edelgard in 1165. And per Dimitri's words, this came to be as a result of a political turmoil of sorts. Besides the reason given being very vague, it raises a lot of questions when considering what came after. What do we mean by this? Well, despite Patricia being just one of Emperor Ionius's many consorts, their meeting in Garreg Mach had the distinction of being a popular love legend in Fodlan. After her exile, she changed her name in the kingdom and even hid herself altogether to prevent a quote-unquote scandal. And lastly, in the Japanese version of Hubert and Hanneman's C support, it's brought up Emperor Ionius partly wanted to reform the empire to abolish the consort system altogether just 2 years after Edelgard's birth. What we're trying to say is that while we aren't privy to the motive behind her exile, evidence suggests the scandal Patricia got involved in was somehow bad enough it started a huge domino effect that screwed everyone in the end. Number 2. Where did she go? Much intrigue is given to Azure Moon's reveal that Patricia willingly helped Cornelia and other kingdom nobles cause the tragedy of Duscur, allegedly so she would have the chance to see her daughter once more. And while she was believed to have died in the tragedy, evidence late into Dimitri's story points out otherwise. In chapter 21, it's revealed by a prisoner from House Kleiman that everyone involved with the regicide had been given the orders to not touch Patricia during the chaos. Not only that, but Rodrigue also states Patricia's body was never actually found, meaning she pretty much went missing in action after 1176.
Surely that means she was abducted. There was no evidence of an attack, suggesting they threatened her, but did not kill her.
But what reason would they have to take her? Would it not have been better to kill her?
Perhaps she had some value as a diplomatic pawn.
Nonsense. In the many years since that day, has Lady Patricia ever been used thus?
No, not as far as I know. Then perhaps she was used for some political gain within the Empire.
Now that her daughter is the Emperor, what reason would she have to keep hiding her existence?
It is possible she passed away after returning to the Empire.
Ultimately, the only thing clear about this exchange is that there was a specific reason she was allowed to escape Duscur unharmed, or like Gilbert theorizes, that she had to die outside Duscur. And the mystery gets a little more strange. Where are Emperor Ionius's consorts? It's part of Edelgard's backstory that she was only one of 11 siblings, and that those were children of Emperor Ionius's other consorts. Her brothers and sisters also passed away due to the experiments those who slither in the dark performed on them to create a soldier/puppet emperor with the Crest of Flames. Yet there is something that's never been addressed. What happened to the mothers of those children? Edelgard's Goddess Tower scene is one of the few moments where they are acknowledged, but beyond that, the status of the consorts after the nobles' coup against Ionius in 1171 and the death of their kids afterwards is unknown. You could make the case that the writers just forgot or that the story isn't about them, but given Patricia, the only plot-relevant consort, went missing in action after leaving Duscur, isn't it kind of funny to think how every one of Ionius's women just poofed out of existence one day? Full disclosure, what I'm about to say is definitely not 100% confirmed, but if you're trying to find any answer based on any evidence, there is a chance that there might actually be a truth to this for one key reason. House Vestra, a house of marquises without a domain, existing in the shadow of House Hresvelg. In addition to managing the darker tasks of the Empire, it is responsible for the Emperor's periphery affairs, including coordinating things such as ceremonies and rituals, imperial consorts, and the Imperial Guard. House Vestra was allied with House Ayer in the insurrection. Given the Emperor was virtually a puppet after the insurrection, from the nobility's point of view, there was no practical reason to keep his consorts around, especially if they can become a hindrance due to the Prime Minister letting their kids get experimented on and likely dying in the process. This is where Hubert's house comes in. Marquis Vestra switching sides in the insurrection meant Duke Ayer had pretty much the Empire secret police under his thumb, and if you think about it, they are the best candidates for the job. After all, if anything were to ever happen to Ionius's consorts, like for example going missing, it would be on them, because, after all, ensuring their well-being was meant to be one of their responsibilities. Edelgard Mystery Number 2. Questions surrounding Edelgard's lifespan are raised after her experiments due to one name: Lysithea von Ordelia. For context, in 1167, Lysithea and her siblings were experimented by those who slither in the dark as a means to test the viability of having a human bear two crests. The experiment was successful, but at the expense of the lives of Lysithea's brothers and sisters, and even then, Lysithea was told her lifespan was shortened, and wasn't expected to survive more than 5 years. From then on, Lysithea's low life expectancy becomes a main drive for her, constantly overworking herself for the sake of giving her house and her parents the prosperous future she was denied. Which begs the question, was Edelgard affected as well? Unlike Lysithea, she never brings up the topic of her lifespan in the story, nor is it mentioned in her motivations, despite having also been experimented on by the group 7 years later. Yet despite this, her paired ending with Lysithea mentions both discovered ways to recover the years of life that had been stolen from them. So what gives? Well, evidence from both the game and interviews suggests that while Edelgard's lifespan was also compromised, it didn't affect her to the same extent. For one, the last Nintendo Dream interview mentions that the methods used for Edelgard were more refined compared to her partner. And second, in Edelgard's sea support with Byleth, there's one extra detail mentioned about her experiments, which in Lysithea's case are nowhere to be found.
Ours weren't the only lives devastated by that terrible process. Innocents died as well, without even knowing what they were dying for.
And finally, the Hegemon Husk. What is it? The Hegemon Husk is both the transformation and class Edelgard uses at the very end of Azure Moon as a result of being pushed to her limits, which is also the basis for Heroes' Fallen Edelgard. And while the metamorphosis is foreshadowed in the story and provides Dimitri's route a climactic final boss, its origin is a big question mark. The few things that Three Houses says about it is that, according to the class's description, it involved archaic methods to make. It lets Edelgard use the power of her two crests, and that it's considered in-universe as an anomaly, as in a phenomenon which goes against established rules of Fodlan's world. What exactly are these archaic methods? What rules is the transformation breaking? We don't know, and in Azure Moon, the screen goes black when Edelgard assumes this form, which does little to help answer these questions. It's been speculated that the transformation could come from the Emir, similar to how Miklon and Maurice unintentionally became demonic beasts with the Lance of Ruin and Bloodgang respectively, but this theory has two key problems. Number 1, Edelgard's relic is nowhere to be found after her monster form is destroyed, unlike the examples provided, and 2, the Hegemon Husk is considered a pure monster in the game, while Miklon and Maurice's demonic beasts are both monster and dragon units. So in practice, whatever Edelgard's transformation is, shares more in common with more normal monsters like giant wolves and birds, which somehow absorb magic through eating magic crystals to get huge. It's also been pointed out that the transformation resembles Sothis' adult form from the church's official mural, and while there are some similarities between both, mainly their curved wings, it's unknown if these are meant to be intentional. The only blatant connection the Hegemon Husk has is with the Agarthans, as the Shambhala theme plays in the background in Azure Moon's endgame when Hegemon Edelgard is fully revealed, so it's fair to think they're the ones that came up with it. After all, someone having two crests in the world of Fodlan is meant to be impossible, yet that didn't stop them from proving otherwise. Also, nowadays, people have pointed out that Arvel from Three Hopes somewhat resembles the general image of the Hegemon Husk. Though given the game isn't officially out as of this video, same with Sothis' mural, it's hard to say if the similarities between both are deliberate, and it's an interesting comparison to make, but we'll see what happens. Well folks, that will do it for this second video of Fire Emblem Three Houses theories. If you haven't checked out the first one about Sothis, be sure to watch that one next. I now pass the mic to you. What do you think about these theories? Do you know of any theories that you think would be interesting to see scrutinized in a future video? And while you're at it, please leave a like, as it greatly helps boost this video's search ratings. Finally, a big thank you to everyone who has recently subscribed to the channel. The channel is slowly closing in on 94,000 subscribers, and that is bonkers. If you like the channel's content and you want to help get it to 94,000 and beyond, with the ultimate goal of 100,000 subscribers, please consider subscribing. And if you want to support the channel past subbing and hitting the bell, check out my Patreon page as well. That's it for today. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you next time. Deuces.